What on earth, Funmaster Mike, does this have to do with backward moves? I mean, white moved the queen backward just to get her safe, but what's the brilliant backward move? Well, it's coming up. Sometimes, in order to go forward, you have to first go backward. If you've ever been on a plane trip, you might know this. You start in Dallas, and for some reason, you go to Atlanta, then you go back to Chicago. Yeah, that wasn't exactly the most direct route. And by the way, why do all planes change in Atlanta? Anyway, that's a discussion for a different time. In chess, every piece can go backward, except for the pawn. Today, we're going to look at all of the active pieces going backward to get to better positions or for some other reason. And probably the most popular piece to move backward is the knight. In fact, there are certain openings where going backward is just part of the game. Take a look at our chess position here. Out of the Re Lopez, it's black to move, and although it's not the only move, one idea is for black to play the amazing knight back home. That's right, he goes right back where he came from, knight to b8. This is called the Breyer defense. No, not like the ice cream, like probably somebody famous named Breyer who I don't know. The idea of knight to b8 is to be able to reposition the knight to d7, so that the pawn on c7 can come forward to c5, and also, if your bishop lands on b7, it will not be blocked by the knight. Pretty high level idea. And if white plays, for example, d4, you can play knight to d7, guarding this pawn using a different square, and then black can continue his development in the same way that I've just showed. Let's take a look at perhaps a better example of a knight going backward before it can come back forward. Here we have the classic knight versus bishop. It's been covered in other ChessKid videos, but what you sometimes need to do when you're the side with the knight is to start by envisioning the knight's dream square. That's right. Let's all start talking softly and go to sleep as we dream. We dream happy thoughts for Mr. Knight. And where does Mr. Knight want to go in our dream? That's right, it's obviously d5. If you've gotten this far in the ChessKid levels, you know about outposts. Now, how does the knight get 2 squares away diagonal? Well, it actually takes 4 moves for a knight to ever get 2 squares away diagonal. We're going to need to think of a creative way to get there. There actually isn't any safe square by going forward, so what we're going to do is start out by going backward with knight to d2. Now, black should probably play kind of actively here, not just sit around, but let's just say black attempts to trade off with bishop to g5. We're not going to let him. We're going to go backward again. That's right. The knight returns home to b1, and now we see white's idea. No matter what black does, we'll just give black a queen move. The knight comes to c3, and although it took a long time, the knight is going to get to his dream square. Notice the position is a little bit closed, and when there's closed positions, you do have time for this sort of backward maneuvering. Okay, we've taken a look at the knight pretty in depth. Now let's take a look at a bishop going backward. I've given white 2 bishops so as not to give away which one we're going after here. Now, if I showed this position to any kind of tactical junior chess players, which I'm sure you all are, this bishop looks perfectly placed because after all, if our queen ever manages to get to g7 safely, we know that's the queen and helper checkmate. And in fact, white begins with queen g5. King moves over. Now, if we could just distract or deflect this rook, we could play a checkmate. But that's a different video for a different day. We've already covered it. So instead, white tries to just simply take the rook. The rook is, after all, loose. Queen h5. Okay, so black defends the rook with bishop e6, and then white brings more pieces to the party, brings the rook to the half-open file. And after e4, notice his bishop is not actually in danger because if it gets captured, then the white rook just captures the bishop back and joins the attack. So, white tries to loosen up this stranglehold on the center by playing c4, attacking the base pawn of the pawn chain. Okay, black goes after the white queen, and the queen runs away. Now you might be thinking at this point, what on earth, Funmaster Mike, does this have to do with backward moves? I mean, white moved the queen backward just to get her safe, but what's the brilliant backward move? Well, it's coming up. After queen to e5, it's really important in chess that you don't just stick to one idea and never leave that idea, okay? Chess ideas are not super glue. This bishop, did it have a purpose on h6? Yeah, it did a while ago, but there's no more checkmate coming on g7, we can clearly see that. So, take a look at the bishop in red. How can the bishop in red go backward in order to be able to come forward? Did you find bishop c1? If you did, you're as good as one of the most famous players in chess history, Mikhail Botvinnik, and bishop c1 pretty much ends the game. Notice black has no dark squared bishop, and once the bishop reroutes itself back to b2, this diagonal is completely deadly. There's actually not much black can do about it. I'm not going to play all the remaining moves, but I will show you a couple more. The queen ran away so she wouldn't get pinned, but after a couple of captures, bishop to b2 check, then we had another check, then the rook captured the bishop back, and then we had this really nice sacrifice, and white went on to win the game because the power of the queen and the bishop, and eventually the rook also joined the attack, was too much for black to bear. Okay, we've done the knight, we've done the bishop. We're actually going to skip over the rook and go right to the queen. This game was played by what might be the world's strongest chess computer. It's called AlphaZero, and our friends at Google invented it. And you know it's going to be good if the Google minds invented it. Here, in this position, it looks like the white queen is right out in the middle of an open chessboard doing what she wants to do. AlphaZero, who is frankly even smarter than Magnus Carlsen, found this amazing idea though. Look what AlphaZero did. Queen to h4 check. Okay, this pawn is pinned. Don't panic. The computer did not give away the queen. There is not a malfunction. The king slid over, and now the queen is in danger. So where did AlphaZero put the queen? The queen got buried on h1. That's right. She went from c4 to h4 back to h1. That is about as backward as you get. But look at what she's doing there. She's creating this awesome battery on the c6 pawn. And if white is able to take twice on c6, then the queen will re-enter the attack. So will the rooks. It's not quite how the game finished, but trust me when I say AlphaZero went on to win this game as white. Okay, our last example I'm going to present to you, dear chess kids, as a puzzle. And in this position, black's pieces are a little more active than white's, but white has this strong pass pawn. Turns out though, black's tactics crash through before white is able to use this pawn. I'm going to give you the first move. I'm feeling kind of nice today. Black played rook to a1. And you really don't want to let that rook hang out on the first rank. Only bad things can happen. So white responded with rook to b1. We've arrived at our puzzle. Here we go, chess kids. We've done knight, bishop, and queen backward moves, so I've given you a pretty strong hint. There's going to be a rook backward move, but it may not be on the first turn. What I'd like you to do is pause your video and then unpause it once you think you've solved the black to move and win position. Okay, if you've unpaused your videos, it must mean that you found something special. Now, if you retreat your rook on the very first move, I'm not sure what that does. I think this white pawn is going to motor down the board and get a new queen. So, the way that black won the game was actually knight to g3 check, taking advantage of the fact that the queen can't take back because she's in charge of protection of the rook. I don't think that white's going to last a lot longer if that trade happens. So, the only move for white, the only other legal move, is to capture, but now the backward rook move. If you found knight g3 check, I'm sure you found rook to a8. White is completely helpless in this position. The rook goes all the way back to a8, and rook to h8 is happening no matter what white does on the next turn. I guess white could sacrifice the queen for the pawn with check, but we're not counting crazy moves. Rook h8 is going to be winner, winner, and a chicken dinner. There we have it, chess kids. Sometimes you have to go backward to come forward, and pretty much every one of your fighting pieces is able to accomplish this given the right position.